So today, I'd like to introduce you some of my experimental work and moving work previously. So, hopefully this can be useful to your research as well in the future. So, anyway, I'll start. So first day, just we can have a brief view of the ECGL, the water and sensor model that the lab is aimed to perform experiments focusing on fluid mineral interactions, and it's helping with understanding or body genetics and also the uh, mobilization and movement related medium in the crop. So it helps with science and help with you know industry applications as well. So we have multiple capabilities. We can do with this lab we can do the basic sample preparation. At the end, let control. Um, a lot of stuff you need to be very familiar with, and then chemical solution type analysis, maybe all this stuff from the experiment, very general kind of like that. So the reactors also use is one of the sampling line oscillators that I showed the picture here. We have a this action liner where we can fill samples in minerals and fluids, and then put this in the daily scale output to do spec reactor experiment. So temperature range for this type of reactors, we can do this 0 to 220 degrees because of the limitations of the paddle. The higher temperature on salt and flat. So, but any conditions within that range very easy to set up for quickly testing to mineral interactions in right way. And also because of teflon is very kind of tolerant material, a lot of different chemicals safely and cleanly. Uh, yeah, I think yeah, that's all about it. So volume is 75 mil in total for food and minerals together. So it's a lot of sample base today. So we can run for analysis after the experiment. So actually, SCM, electrical, physical. So yeah, it's very any system. So we also recently set up the car systems that expand conditions a little bit for experiments that can run a little bit higher temperatures with this titanium build-up, which is kind of strong anti-corrosion material. And also because we have these connections, this different connection on the top of the reactor that allow you to access the internal samples when we run the experiments. And also it allows us to shoot the gas in, different gas into the reactor so we can test this effect from different factors such as oxygen, hydrogen, carbon dioxide. So it's expanding the capabilities as well. So and also because of those openings on the top, we can sample the solutions in situ when the experiment is running and allow us to really look at how the fluid mineral systems evolve in the time frame that is time. So it's very handy. Also, so another advantage at our lab is we're basically in Melbourne, and we have a well-established characterization group there that they have all the characterization abilities there, with very advanced lecture probes, SPM, that we can do all this good analysis. And this is their front page of the website, and it's the address of the website. We can log in to what they have. So this is a screenshot of the equipment they have there. Always shows electric probes, and also I think they recently upgraded them for doing battery PhD on IBM stuff. So, single experiment is one of the key capabilities you have in your lab that you start from Sual and from Wi-Fi 20 years ago. That is started to use synchrotron automatic geoscience, analyzing geological fluids, minerals and metals and their behavior in situ in synchrotron to understand how they present, how they evolve in the systems. And so this is picture here I'm showing here is set up as of synchrotron XAS, so actual function, spectral state in mind. So what we can do here is we can set up a vector there and heat it up and pressurize it so it can simulate kind of deep fluids in the response so we can see how metals present in water. And X-rays can shoot through, so analyze vector spectrum analysis. Also, we have done other similar experiments. For example, shown here is one deep at the European synchrotron. That this is their microcity line that we can do the in situ flow through experiment, where samples can be put here in this small core, and then we can flow the fluids through and to see how and then measure the mineral phase and texture changes with time. And then another advantage of the system is we can monitor the pressure we use and also monitor temperature we use, so we can simulate those very different conditions. Before, so this is a example case study we've done before. So the samples are from Yellowstone, the hydrothermal modern hydrothermal systems in their active floods in the lake. So we needed to put this remote control vehicle to the bottom. Using this robot arm to connect the push core in the flood to connect samples and see how minerals evolve in those modern hydrogen floods. And then we started asking because that's arsenic enriched in the sediment of Yellowstone, so it's had a strong kind of environmental impact. We want to understand how the arsenic evolved and where they come from, how they distribute, and how it reacts to the temperature and pressure changes of the water. So they shed light on the difference and shed light on the environmental impact. So there's a lot of pyrites formed in those sediments reconnected, and then they have those textures. I control this individual core in the middle and those really fractured grains. You can see we put them in the synchrotron, analyze the compositions. You can see the different generations of pyrites showing different chemical class integration in the sediments. And so this analysis has been done at the X-ray fluorescence beam Australian synchrotron. And if you compare to that BSE image, the vector image, you can see that the power range of synchrotron is kind of bigger because the strong X-rays can penetrate really well with sample. So something that is buried in the frontal surface, you can really fit through it with synchrotron. So that's really very useful. So apart from understanding the distribution of elements in those samples, so the fluorescence beam and synchrotron also can do the advanced mapping together as well. So what it allows is to understand the readouts of those elements. For example, the arsenic, because arsenic has different readout, right? Like arsenic 2 class, arsenic 3 class, or arsenic 5 class, and their mobility and their toxicity is different. And then that's important to understand where they are and whether they are easy to release or not from the mineral. So things can help to go out and get this information. So we did that. from the XFI mapping, we can see the ratios of different arsenic species in the minerals in situ. So also you can plot the arsenic, for example, arsenic 2 class versus arsenic 5 class ratios within those minerals to see how they evolve in those segments. So this example is the one that we did at the European synchrotron. Let's look at the replacement of calcite by sulfate-rich water to form gypsum, and also see how the porosity, for example, evolves in this flow-through systems. And you can see that this is the result from synchrotron. That you can see this where the minerals being dissolved and forming this larger fluid pathways, and also there's more that show us what the basis is, how it goes from the particular. So the case here I'm showing is the applications to understanding mineral fluids using experiments. So one example here is about germanium in zinc ore. So germanium is one of the great minerals that has been very important component in semiconductor. But one thing to be emphasized is often a byproduct rather than a independent of the process itself. And the germanium is often recovered from big ores and coal. So the observation really kind of is associated with the zinc fabric. So but the thing is like, for its exploration, we need to understand why. It is spiralite. So to help us better do the experience, like why it's in spiralite and how we understand spiralite and the meaning associated rather than report part. So the experiments can help us to stimulate the germanium operations in the spiralite minerals. We will have some hypotheses of ore forming processes, and then we can stimulate and test our ideas. So first step is to try to make this germanium gold in ores in the lab to produce photoregulation. So what we did is we react the thin germanium iron copper bearing brine, and it's similar to what we observe in those MVT or CX type of deposit systems. So react this fluid with calcite, we're just can see the carbonates in those systems. So so this is the product from our experiment. You can see this fluid after reaction with calcite is forming a precipitating from the surface by replacing calcite. So that's first step. So what it really indicates is the precipitation of spiralite by reacting zinc chloride with sulfide to form spiralite. But also it releases protons into the water, making the fluid more acidic. But this is not good because you want to make spiralite stable, you're gonna remove the hydrogen from the system to make you better and black fluid. So really, we have calcium. That's why it is there. Hold it. Calcium will neutralize hydrogen. And release calcium and those things. But really, the key is when you have calcium and those fluids together, you make the fluid, right? Because the calcium helps to drive the first reaction this way. You're gonna have expecting more spiralite to accumulate in the rock. So this is a picture of the sample and RPM. You can see the spiralite is forming and those spherical textures, and we also observe hydride and spiralite, which are all observed in the natural fluid systems. So first step is successful, and the next step is we want to understand why it's mainly there in the spiralite. So we want to understand how they distribute in the spheroid. Number one. Number two is what state they are, what kind of readout values of germanium, and what is relationship to the other metals like iron, copper, and it's often observed in same systems. Is there correlation? Is any kind of uh, uh, help from other elements that is facilitating germanium incorporation precipitation into the ore? So the simple version how to do that, we measure the experimental sample and measure the initial sample from the deposits and we compare. The results here, we compare the results of germanium. So what is really shown is germanium in the spheroid are all germanium core plants state in phases. Regardless of what kind of germanium solution in water, they are germanium core plants. And their association, the example here is germanium and iron. There's no clear association between germanium and iron. What it says is you don't necessarily need iron because to make germanium in spheroid. It is there because the structure of spheroid helps germanium incorporation into the liquid. And you can worry about couple substitution or solid solutions, whatever. So it is there because spheroid favors germanium incorporation. So that's the key messages from the experiments. So it also sheds on the other critical minerals, germanium, indium, this element that has probably similar group in the periodic table with kind of similar properties. So it may explain how why germanium sometimes also has those methods. So case study number 2 is about LCGs. This is one work I did before, taking olivine ore as an example. So the iron oxide copper deposits are often, massive iron oxide ore bodies where you see magnetite and hematite everywhere. And one small specific phenomenon we observed is the records in the iron oxide ores. So pictures of the data reported by the PhD, right? This is the total content of iron and the total content of graphics. So they are well correlated. Another thing we found is the light rare serum is one of the most enriched rares in the ore. And the picture on the right showing the textures of those magnetite being replaced by hematite in it. So we don't understand why. Right? We don't understand why the rare is correlated with iron oxide, especially in terms of hematite. And also not only rares, there's copper, there's uranium, in some plants, and they are also related to this hematite replacing magnetite, briefly speaking. So we just we have one of the examples here and do the experiment. So what we did is with the magnetite in your records, with the fluid that's kind of simulating what it's expected in nature, and we dose the solution with a little bit of cerium and bind and put it in the oven for weeks. So what we see after the experiment is we see these two different textures. When you have a little bit of cerium in the level, you see this type of textures. When this core of magnetite being ringed by hematite, be replaced by hematite. And this is the constructed green distribution from EBSD analysis. And when you have no cerium, no rares, you have in the same capacity replacing magnetite of totally different textures. And with very different surface structures and also the green side. So what it means, right? So firstly, we put the sample log into the synchrotron. We want to understand the readouts of cerium because it is capable of readout 10 data. So the cerium 3 originally put in the solution, but it's possibly being oxidized cerium 4, which is non-mobile in geological fluids. And we see that the cerium 3 is more kind of homogeneously distributed in the minerals, versus serum 4 is only you see some of the random hotspots here and there instead of everywhere. So without really show serum 3 is still predominant in fluids and they grow. So we analyze the data from ESC and all the green size where their probability of showing. What we see is we have a serum which is capable of redox change. We have neodymium that's just neodymium 3 class in the water. Can't change the redox and see this texture changes with we have continuous changing of A type grains. We have a kind of a wide distribution of A type forms from environment and forming scabs on their grain sizes. So the results shows that we have serum 3 in the water. It really changed the way how you react at the grain surface. When the dissolution of minerals and precipitation of new minerals happen. So the reaction shown here is here. You have the magnetite dissolution first. So we have magnetite, you have water with acidity. You're going to dissolve the iron 2 plus and iron 3 plus into the water and give you a theoretical ratio of the two of 0.5. Right? And this is how you precipitate heat pipe at surface as well. You have iron trace, water, and hematite, you have acidity, and then you have this one as well. But when you have serum, you have this liquid serum in water. You don't have this reaction happen at the mineral phase. And we can check the data book and get the log K of this reaction, at this condition. And then we can calculate it. We have this 200 ppm serum to pH4. The ratio of iron 2 plus versus iron 3 plus is going to be this, and it's crazy now. So what it means, you just need that little bit of serum, in the water, and you can completely change the ratio locally in the green surfaces. And that's why we see the texture difference we see from here. So so the conclusion is trace magnets not only they are there in the minerals. Sometimes for type of minerals like rare earths, we also use them as tracers of geological processes because overall they are low in content. But even this low content, they can do a really active catalytic role to change the textures you observe initial samples from the solar orbits. By fit into this, chemical cycle of the reaction on the fluid surface, on the fluid interface. We compare this with the samples from the Yucatan region, and it's very similar textures from experiments. Yeah, I think I will just conclude there on the experiment. I've done a lot of other ones, but I think it's enough for today. Any questions?